Oh boy, here we go. At first, I was just watching from the sidelines, but at this point, I kind of want to cover this because nobody really has on YouTube. I will try to stay neutral, but I have a side, as you can see on the thumbnail, which, yes, I exaggerated, but this situation is nuanced at the moment and kind of needs attention, and I can't think of a good thumbnail. I don't really know how to do drama videos, so this is also rushed. I will use the name Kyo, as that's more in line with his online appearance and easier for those to understand than comparing two both real names. In essence, Gaijin has recently dismissed a very favorable senior community manager in the CIS sphere known as Kyo Fox, Evgeny Kononenko, I don't think I pronounced it right, and then tried to bury the topic, and at current, a Russian ex-politician slash civil servant, the lead community manager, Alexander Tolkach, has been outed as the reason behind this. According to the creative director, the former, Kyo, was not very active in recent time, and other sources claim he was involved in attacks within the company. Kyo was known for being an old guard member of Gaijin's community management, open to player discourse, and supposedly the actual creator of the War Thunder wiki. According to Gaijin's creative director, he was not actually fired, but left under a lengthy agreement. The latter, Alexander, is a community manager, the lead community manager, who allegedly actively disregarded community opinions and the economy rework, which led to the infamous review bombings of last year. The accusations of being a politician are argued that he merely worked as a civil servant in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, not a politician. Further, it should also be noted that Alexander supposedly paid some sum to psychotherapists in offer to help Kyo out of his pocket with mental issues early on in their then friendship. However, Kyo has alleged that Alexander then later used the fact of his mental issues and that visit to help as ammunition later against him, and that the mental issues were not serious, childhood related. Is what Kyo said, at least. Alexander has said that he did not, in fact, share the share the information closely with colleagues offline at a time after Kyo Fox was engaged in the attacks against him, but not openly, and hadn't expected such information to get out and knows not who shared. In essence, he claims that, yeah, I said it, but I didn't mean it to get out or anything, which... It's also worth noting that there is a muddy situation going on with the accusations of political statements, or rather, intense argument on the subject of Ukraine within the company's internal chats between Alexander and Kyo Fox. Alexander has said no such thing has happened with Kyo Fox, and similarly, Kyo has said no such things have happened, and stresses that as a Russian citizen this is a serious allegation that can result in political imprisonment. That said, the claimant says multiple community managers have quit in the past due to the amount of sensitive imagery and such sent. However, I don't have a strong source, and I suspect this to be drama made up by a fired former CM that doesn't even have the eyes on the situation anymore, and that such, while flingings may have seemingly happened, they were not specifically between Kyo and Alexander. Alexander even claims that he fired specifically people on both sides of throwing political shit, but the Kyo was not one of them. I plan on making an in-depth follow-up in the days to come if I do break this ground, but I do remain open to any new sources, which can be directed privately to my Discord DMs. Please, or anything else you can find, really. I promise anonymity and collaboration to any sources who come forth, regardless of stance. I will not, From here on, I will read the more comprehensive series of Reddit posts. Yes, I know, the peak of journalism, to help the individuals decide for themselves, if you do not believe my reading. A week ago, the company fired the senior community manager, Kyo Fox. People come and go, you might say, but this guy in particular was very well known in the community. He worked from the very foundation of War Thunder, and then from the foundation of Enlisted, and was always at the center of the Russian-speaking community. He created the War Thunder wiki. As it became known from a discussion that first appeared in the Russian-speaking community, this guy was dismissed with a major conflict by the new CM boss of Gaijin, Alexander Tolkach, who came to the company from the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Guys, I'm not kidding. He is the leader of CM and Gaijin for both the Russian-speaking and international audience, while the company is trying to distance itself from everything Russian. The head of all CMs is literally a Russian politician. Next, I'll translate for you the post that is being discussed on the VK social network. Do you know much about how Gaijin operates from the inside? We have gathered a very interesting insider story for you from volunteers, moderators, and even employees of the company, in which we will tell you the details about the dismissal of Kyo Fox and who is at the helm of the community management today. The post is not small, but it is interesting. Let's remind you about Kyo. He is one of the few community managers at Gaijin who at least tried to develop communication with the community. Personally, he helped the author of this text to get out of a hopeless ban for account sharing about 5 years ago, and in general, the old-timers know him not only as Pobijdat, a nickname, which is to win. He has been with War Thunder from the very launch of the game, and for the last few years, he worked on another Gaijin project, Enlisted, already in a position higher than that of a community manager, but he continued to actively communicate with players and appear in the information field. So, he is one of the most well-known old-timers at Gaijin, and one of the most dedicated to his job. And now, insights from the assistants and employees. Kyo did not quit. He was kicked out as a result of a conflict with a certain Alexander. The latter messed up wildly, and Kyo often complained about him, but the management did nothing about it. In Gaijin, this Alexander is listed as the chief community manager. At the same time, you have never seen this cool community manager at all, and the guy himself can be easily googled as a Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs politician. Very interesting. A manager of state-owned companies, and in general has nothing to do with the video game industry. Also, directly from assistants, we know several examples of chaos for which Kyo threw himself at Tolkich. Before moving to Enlisted, Kyo Fox was in charge of the assistants. Last year, Tolkich ignored the feedback we left on the exchanges in the economy, and that infamous review bombing happened on Steam. He simply did not pass the feedback from the assistants, in which they detailed the problem, and in general did not work with the players at all, apparently dealing with something more important. Another case where he ignored the community manager and volunteers, wild trolling on the subject of the war in Ukraine among moderators. In the company's chats, they threw videos at each other with blood and guts in hopes of provoking outrage among their neighbors until Kyo attacked Tolkich again. This is known directly from moderators who couldn't take it and left. As a result of these liquid failures of Tolkich, he was not fired, but simply changed positions and then began digging under Kyo. It even came to some completely retarded personal assaults from him towards Kyo Fox. This complete mess is happening at Gaijin right now, and as a result they fired Kyo as a person who raised issues, who actively worked with players, and about whom, objectively, you can remember a lot of good things. The story is being carefully erased. Kyo was fired a few days ago, his colleagues are being silenced, and even posts on Reddit War Thunder were being deleted. See the screenshots. While the screenshots show on screen, I should note that the Reddit mods clarified that the posts were only taken down for using the news flare inappropriately, as they're not supposed to be used for that. The claim from Todes, the creative director. First of all, Kyo Fox was not involved in War Thunder for several years already, and the reason of our separation is not anyhow related to Alexander, who is administrative manager in the CM team and wasn't working with Kyo Fox much for at least last year. Sometimes people change their job for different and complicated reasons. That is not public subject. Politics subjects are forbidden to discuss in the company, and there's any connection to politics. The fact that Kyo Fox was Russian CM and enlisted also doesn't mean anything. That's ridiculous. I don't know his political views, as well as other CMs or developers and don't want to, and this is completely irrelevant. Kyo Fox left the company 2 weeks ago after a few months of talks and discussions. There are some complications in this story, and nothing in common of what is stated in this post. We hope that someday, maybe in a couple of years, we would manage to work together again. Who knows? There were many good things in our cooperation, and work of community managers is not always pleasant. You know, being person for hate and threats can be hard. But let's repeat, things happen. Enlisted team and players will cope, I hope, as well as Kyo Fox. I'm sure Russian players will meet him sooner or later in other games, because his experience will definitely find use. Alright, now we get the interesting stuff. Kyo Fox shows up very recently and says, I have seen enough. Hello, this is Kyo Fox. Over the last few days, I've been bombarded with topics about my dismissal. I've read everything and kept track, but I didn't dare intervene. I was afraid of harming. But among the many reasons for my dismissal, the latest one was the information about Alexander's non-involvement in my dismissal. Well, this is a response only to that specific fact. After all, not only my honor and conscience are at stake, but my freedom. Let me explain in order. Before you is a screenshot of Alexander admitting to using my medical information as a tool to fight against me. He literally informed my colleagues from other departments of the company that I had a mental illness, that they shouldn't interact with me, and even mentioned that he paid for my first session with a psychologist. Before I continue, tell me, Which hand would you use to strike someone in the face who uses your personal life and childhood psychological pain at work to destroy your reputation in the eyes of people you've worked with for over 12 years? Yes, I went to a doctor. It was a psychotherapist whom you simply talked to about mental difficulties. And it wasn't even about work-related issues. I had a difficult childhood, and I simply lacked self-confidence. That's what I was trying to address with the doctor. And this psychotherapist was recommended to me by Alexander Tolkach as his friend in the first year of our collaboration, when our friendship, as it seemed to me, was still fine. 3 years later, he turned his help into a weapon against me in response to my complaints about his work. Was Alexander punished for such a vile act? Is my dismissal related to him? It's up to you to judge. I presented one fact out of dozens that I simply couldn't remain silent about. Mental pain often hurts more than physical wounds and takes a long time to heal. A person can be destroyed by pressing on the suffering they've tried to keep within themselves their whole life. I broke down. Although I thought I was strong, when you're blamed for all the problems of the face of the company, you have to be strong and not run away from the players. That's the essence of a community manager's job. As for the threat to freedom, I'm not making empty claims. Currently, in the Prussian part of the community, lies are being spread about my active political stance. Allegedly, I turned the company's chats into a political platform. Who benefits from this? I was born and live in Russia. That's how God ordained it. And here, such slander can lead to a prison sentence longer than for rape or murder. I've never allowed myself any political statements. That's the essence of being a game dev. We should create amazing worlds, sheltered from politics and simply hatred, with a thick concrete wall. I read your words of support, and I'm very glad about all these years of work won't disappear with me. Although the War Thunder Wiki YouTube channel seems to be frozen, check out the shorts on it, I'm very proud of them, the wiki server itself will soon be reborn in version 3.0. You'll like it, and many of my colleagues won't abandon our cool work. I'm telling you, thank you for these words of support, regardless of whether I can continue working in a company that I love despite everything or become part of its history. The spice begins, because under that post, we get the man himself responding. I'm going to read this a little bit slowly because Alexander's English isn't very good. Kyo, I'll answer in English as well. Well, first of all, as already stated by our creative director, you was working an enlisted project for some years and thus had no issues related to War Thunder or War Thunder community on any meaningful scale apart from nostalgia. And we even had good option to work with without much crossing each other. I'm administering the CM team, but you, Kyo, had other superiors and it was not my decision to fire you. Actually, though we had unstable relations recently, I feel sad that you had to go and tried to prevent it from happening, which I was repeating to you for like 8 months already. True, I paid for your first visit to psychotherapist, hoping to help you to get to yourself. At the time, we both see each other as close friends, and I relied heavily on your help in projects we worked on. And this post surprises me a lot, which is not that easy. What it has to do with the fact of your leaving the company? And yes, my mistake was to discuss that fact with a few of our common friends. It was a reaction to you starting to push hard on blaming me for a lot of things I was never even close to. So it slipped. Should never have told them, and for that, and that only, I'm sorry. Also, for all interested out there, I'll repeat some facts about my past. I was never a politician, either good or bad. I was a civil servant back in my youth, right after graduating the university. Left civil service 20 years ago exactly, and started a career in communications in commercial companies. In 2014, I was too tired of large industrials, and founded own small game dev studio with mixed success, ending up in 2019 in Gaijin as a hired manager for the CM team. By the way, I was fond of video games since 1986. My first computer was a Commodore 64, have written my first attempt of a game for Amiga 500 in 1992, was working for some local game studios while a student in 1995 to 1999. Not a typical path for a dangerous manipulating politician, eh? And then Kyo makes a reply. In this statement, I only addressed the most egregious fact. I did not touch on your manipulations behind my back, including lying to a colleague that I thought their salary was too high, causing the person to break down and make a mistake. I did not touch on the hiring of new employees, your job, which dragged on for 5 to 8 months. The story with all the facts will come out in detail and crazy, but I limited myself to defending my conscience and honor. I do not have a Commodore 64, I started with a Pentium 4. I read gaming magazines where I came across the first Gaijin games and joined the company as a person who made first gaming guides. I don't know why we're sharing this. Maybe to look more human. Okay. To which Alexander explains, that was to explain how much I had anything to do with the politics or governments, close to zero, and why I am with game dev. For more, Alexander was talking to general members of the community, and in response to being harshly criticized for sharing medical history, he clarified, no one weaponized anything. It's a slip in a talk in a closed circle, never aimed to have any outcome. And I had many opportunities to make Kyo fired. Never used any. Instead, felt obliged to try and save him from destroying his career. Not because I loved him or hated him, but he was a good worker until starting to make strange assumptions about relationship with other people, including me. Actually, it is a sad story, not of hatred. I used to manage teams for 16 years in different places. First time situation with just one colleague went so much out of order. Alexander makes a clarification regarding the statements. Both statements are a lie. I was never a politician. I never sent any war photos to any of the chats. It was taken from a discussion of another person doing, who was actually fired for that by me, as some others who started political shit in working chats regardless of the side.